morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is rising to your greatness. And it means leaving the small self behind to step into that place of purpose and service, probably. Anyway, before we get started, it should be a really interesting conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel that sensation, the tension, the friction, the tickling, the tingling, and allow that sensation to bring you present into your body, this remarkable physical form that is the vehicle through which you experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. Wow, everybody showed up bright and early. Good morning, Rosalind. Good morning, Dido. Good morning, Lisa. So wonderful to have you all here with us this morning. Thanks so much for chiming in and for being here. And today we're talking about rising to your greatness. And what kinds of impediments we might have along the way, and what is that calling? What is that calling that calls us to be more than we know ourselves to be, right? That vision of something that our heart is drawing us toward, that we just don't have the context for how to be with that. Like maybe you have a big vision for something that you want to see happen in the world, and the conversation that is present for you is, I could never do that. That's too much for, who am I to be able to do that? It reminds me of the Marianne Williamson quote, who am I to be great and wonderful and beautiful and powerful and influential and whatever. Obviously I'm not quoting it very well, but the response is, who am I to be small? Who am I not to be that? We all came here for our full expression, and when our hearts call us to a greater purpose, then we get to rise to that. And I think that's the point. It does take courage. It does take being willing to forget ourselves. We've talked about this a bit recently, being willing to forget our limitations or our limiting ideas of who we are, our limiting beliefs of what's possible, and to leave that behind enough to be able to step into the calling of our heart and soul, and the calling of the universe, the calling of life to express our greater selves. And it can be a terrifying experience, right? It can be in a very odd way. It requires that we confront our mortality, because in some way it is a death of our ideas of who we are, right? It's a death of our small identity. I had a wonderful conversation with someone yesterday talking about the big me and the little me. And in that conversation, we were saying, okay, so what's in between the big me and the little me? Like having to have one foot in each world is where the conversation started. And where it went to was that in the interface of the big me and the little me was clarity. And how about that? Clarity in the middle of the big me and the little me, so that rather than having a foot in either world with the tension of that polarity, to be instead present to the clarity in the midst of it. And what was interesting is that there was no me in clarity, right? It was just clarity. So it was presence. And I think that in these times, we are called now, perhaps more than any other time in humanity, to rise into this potentiality that we are. And we get to forget that we're not good enough, or we're not smart enough, or we're not whatever enough, that we're not enough. We get to forget that, and to then presence ourselves to the beingness of that purpose, to continue to put one foot in front of the other, which was one of our recent topics, the courage to continue along the path that life is leading us. So Rosalind says the I am changes. Right now, I am just being. That's beautiful. That's where we want to be, because when we just be, the doing comes from that, from a place of inspiration. And so Rosalind says, sometimes it feels like just surviving, realizing I have limited resources and am limited by the body, but the spirit me is unlimited. So we look, I think that we think about how limited our bodies are. That's where we go, is that the body is our obstacle, but we forget, and this is what we do every morning when we do our introduction together. Every morning, we're rubbing our hands together. We're feeling the presence of our body. We're presencing ourselves to the fact that the way that we experience the world is through these physical forms. And so while we might focus on the limitations of the body, we can also focus or maybe even instead focus on the miracles of the body that enable us to even have the thought that the body's a limitation. So I think that maybe going more deeply into the body gives us perhaps a deeper connection to the miraculous as well. I know with meditations, like the Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations, we become no body, no thing, no time, no space, no one, and that's transcendent. And the thing is that it is through our physical bodies that we have that experience of no body, no time, no space. It's kind of an interesting thing to consider. But when you are talking, Rosalind, about the I am changing, exactly, the I am does change. And when we allow the I am to move from I am all my personality, like I am my personality, I am my failures, I am my successes, I am my possessions, I am my emotions. When we enable ourselves to get beyond that, maybe we get to the place of I am an expression, I am life expressing itself through me. And in that place, maybe I am an expression of my soul's calling. What's available to us if that's who we are. That all these aspects of ourselves can exist, and still we can move into this place of service. I'm going to call it service because I believe it is being, when we're in service to our heart and soul calling, when we get this sense of purpose, we're in service to that purpose. We're in service to something greater than all the small I ams, right? We're no longer bounded by the limitations that we and maybe our social circles or our environment impose upon us. So, it's interesting as people rise to their greatness. We bring along the parts of us that are wounded. So we get to be healing these parts of ourselves so that we don't end up sabotaging the expression that we came here to express. Lisa says, why is it that the I am my failures is always the easiest part to say? I think that's a really good question, Lisa. It seems to be the case, though. I am, because we don't want to be carried away with ourselves, right? But when we identify with our failures, it is in its way, when we are beating up on ourselves all the time, when we're like, I'm not good enough, I messed this up, I messed that up, I'm a failure. These are all ways that we get to keep ourselves small. And the thing to realize about that is it's still all about me, right? It's all about this instead of that. And in its way, having come from that place myself, where I was pretty obsessed about what was wrong with me and how insufficient and imperfect, beyond imperfect, how deeply, deeply flawed I was. It was all about me all the time. So it was just as egocentric in my case as it would be to be saying how wonderful I am all the time, right? Because it's all faced inward, whether it's self-critical or not, it was still all faced inward. And the other thing about why is it our failures that are easiest to identify with, the likelihood is that you have, or for any of us who've experienced that, we've grown up in an environment that reinforced our failures all the time and taught us how to see ourselves. So we get to re-educate ourselves and refocus and be looking at serving the calling of our soul and of life and of the universe. And the thing is that in that service, we find ourselves. We transcend all this noise about how, that keeps us very small and limited. And we then are able to expand into the possibility that goes way beyond any of those preconceptions or judgments. So Rosalind says, narrowing the gap between the ideal and reality, currently shedding untruths. Rosalind, it's so interesting, you bring up shedding, and that's been something, interestingly, that has come up in multiple conversations recently that I've had with people, and that there is an art to shedding, to allowing the falling away of of false identities, of false associations, of prejudgments, um, when I have this idea, and it may or may not be true, but I have this sense that the more we allow ourselves to shed all of these overlays, the more our authentic heart and soul can shine. And in some respect, any belief is an untruth. At least I'm playing with that idea. I don't know if there's a belief that isn't untrue, in that it is incomplete at the very least. Maybe maybe there are ways to speak our beingness that might be more true than others, but they're approaching truth. Like, I'm spirit in a physical form. What I don't know about the truth or untruth of that. And I don't know how important it is ultimately to our being. I think that our ideas, our thoughts, our beliefs are really powerful vehicles to move us through the experience of whatever this is. And they change and they grow and they morph, and that's a beautiful thing. And I wonder if truth is if there is such a thing as truth with a capital T. I spent the better part of my life wondering about reality with the capital R, and I think that that's on par with truth with a capital T. If there is such a thing, do we even have access to it? Is it possible to access it? And certainly there are some experiences or some knowings that feel more true than others. I know I've shared with you that I had what I call my enlightenment experience when I was 15, and it was a space of beingness, a space of transcendent wholeness. It transcended any identity, time, space, belief, any of that. And so my whole life, it feels like the most true thing that I have ever experienced. It feels to be the most real thing that I have ever experienced, much more real than any other instance of my life. And the thing that characterized it, and here I'm making up words to try and capture it, but the thing that characterized it, if anything that I have words for, it was just being, like pure being, moment of pure being. And that felt like the truest thing. It wasn't even there. There wasn't even thinking anymore. And so when we talk about shedding untruths, maybe, or just shedding identities, because an identity is a fabricated thing. So maybe all of our existence is a construct right? The way that we interact with the world, the way that we perceive the world, um, is a construct, and we have only our we're experiencing our constructs through a construct. Uh, Rosalind says, "My greatness ideal I." Oh, my greatness ideal I hold is to be a healer, creating an environment for a person to experience that, and assisting that process with guiding them through meditation and moving, rebalancing energy. I started by creating a wellness room. So far, I have a massage chair. Spending time in that room myself inspires me to do the next thing. So wood flooring is next. I'm aware of your healing room project, Rosalind, and that's pretty amazing. And what you're talking about in terms of what you're rising to is being a healer. And the thing is that you can step into that identity now, that you can presence your being to that identity, to that construct. And with or without a room, you can be that healer. I mean, just by virtue of your energy. One of the first things I learned about healing was how to heal with my hands. And we all have this capability. And I can just do a really quick exercise with you that helps to activate that. I'm sure you're already aware of it, but if you guys just rub your hands together until you feel friction, feel that, just rub your hands together, feel that friction, and then hold your hands near each other, and you can feel the vibration, the energy in your palms. And then what happens is, as you allow yourself to become present, that energy is actually moving between your palms. And if you imagine it like a ball, like an energy ball, you can squeeze it and you can feel that maybe the heat builds in your palms. And as you squeeze it, you can feel the resistance that's there, and you can actually then expand it and pull it and feel that energy expanding, and feel that energy between your hands. And you can use that energy, for instance, if you feel bodily discomfort or pain, you can use that energy to, I'm feeling something in my throat here. So you can use that energy on yourself to impact, affect the body. You can use that energy on plants. You can use healing energy. If someone has pain, you can use that energy for healing. And the thing about it is to be attuned to allowing the energy that you're moving not to come from you, but for you to be a channel where you move the energy down through your crown and up through your feet and out through your hands. So it's creating this flow of energy outward, so that you're not depleting your own energy or creating any kind of vacuum where you're sucking back in somebody else's energy. Just allow that yourself to be a vehicle. It's super, super powerful. And if your greatness is to be a healer, that's a wonderful place to start. The question that I have for you is, what does it mean to be a healer? And how do you see and feel and experience yourself in that space? And this is part of rising to your greatness. I used to, whenever I attended transformational personal growth workshops or events, which I did quite a lot of for a number of years, I always wanted to be the person that was leading this event. I wanted to be the person on stage. It's really interesting because that's not part of my desire anymore. And I do have big visions of that. I do have big visions. When I took on the vision of the eco park, it required me to step out of my identification with my smallness into service of something greater. And the thing about stepping into something greater is that it gives you courage and power to do things you would never do for yourself or on your own. So it requires, one of the things that I knew when I stepped into that and took ownership of it, it was that I knew that it required me to be more than I knew myself to be. And I knew that it required me to get over myself in so many ways. And as opportunities evolve and as more possibilities emerge, that requirement to rise into this new capacity is ongoing. And we get to keep choosing, we get to keep stepping into our possibility, our potential. We get to keep stepping into the calling and the service. And we get to do that in the face of leaving behind our notions of our limitations. And it's scary. It can be scary because that's who we've known ourselves to be, right? We've known ourselves to be based on our circumstances, based on our insecurities, based on the limits of our beliefs or our perceived personal limitations. And then to be stepping into the next level of experience requires us to rise and to heal the wounds that would be holding us back. And so anyway, I hope that gives you good food for thought today. Step into your greatness. Cultivate the courage to receive and take ownership of your dream, and give yourself that allowing. Whether you achieve it or not, the path to that expression is the life, is the journey, is the gift. It's not the outcome, it's the process that is the gift. So with that, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. Please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, Enlightened World Living, EWN, One with the Earth. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I so appreciate you and the gift of your time, your engagement. You light up my mornings, and I am so grateful and look forward to seeing you again here really, really soon. So much love.